T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. We've gone for main engine start. We have...
From its first flight in 1981 till its final landing in 2011, the Space Shuttle was the backbone of the American space program. Built upon the experience gained from Apollo, and with the goal of making a reusable spacecraft, NASA accomplished a feat that most thought was impossible. 5 complete shuttle systems were built and completed 135 missions to low Earth orbit. They conducted science experiments, deployed and fixed the Hubble Space Telescope, and helped to build the International Space Station, which is in healthy operation still. Using Kerbal Space Program, we'll take a deep dive into each mission, looking at the crew, payload, and mission objectives. Join us on this walk through history. And hey, you just might learn something. I'm Sears JT, and this is Project STS. STS-8 Challenger. The last mission for Challenger, at least for the time being, until we get into the STS-41s. It was launched on August 30th, 1983 at 6:32 a.m. or 1:32 a.m. Eastern, which you probably guessed at 1:32 a.m. It is a night launch, which is the first night launch of a vehicle since Apollo 17. It happened 2 months after STS-7 and flew to a perigee of 350 miles and an apogee of 356. So this is the highest orbit yet for the space shuttle. Normal inclination 28.5 degrees. Let's go ahead and get the crew loaded in, and I'll talk about more pre-launch stuff when we're on the pad. So the crew: Richard H. Truly is the commander. Daniel C. Brandenstein. He's in here somewhere. There he is. Pilot. Mission Specialist 1. Bluford. All the way down here. Bluford, sorry. Dale A. Gardner, MS2. And then William Thornton, MS3. Bluford's special for this mission, and we'll talk about him on ascent. So we got the crew loaded in. Save. We'll load up the payload and move it out to the pad. So as this thing's loading up, it launched on August 30th. Like I said, it was first scheduled for August 4th, but had to be rescheduled. I didn't write down what the rescheduling was for, but the delay caused a requirement, or caused that they had to test some TDRS satellite stuff, because that satellite from STS-7 wasn't performing how they wanted it to. So it necessitated another 10-day delay. What time worked this? Nighttime. During that time, during that delay, they kept the shuttle on the pad, which also made Hurricane Barry hit south of the Cape, or hit Florida. And they didn't have enough time to roll the shuttle back out, so they left the shuttle out during a hurricane. Which, it's bold strategy, NASA, but I guess it worked out for them. So it went through the storm. Obviously it was fine. There was another 17-minute delay before launch due to the storms, and they had to keep bumping it back due to some payload. The satellite in the payload bay, its requirements due to some tracking and stuff like that, the ground stations. So it kept getting delayed until it finally launched at 1:30 in the morning. As I try to get to actual midnight here. Other than that, this also was the first launch with new upgraded SRBs, which gave 7% better thrust. So we got upgraded SRBs on STS-8. And one thing I noted at the end of STS-7 was make note of its turnaround time back to KSC from Edwards, mostly because they already had the stack built and starting to be assembled before the shuttle, or before the orbiter was brought back to KSC. So they got it back to KSC, refurbished it for a day, couple days to get, just to check it out and make sure everything was okay, get the other stuff out of the payload bay, and then restack it. So after post-flight maintenance and mission prep, it was mated with the stack on the July 27th and was rolled out on July 30th. So 3-day span from when it landed back at KSC till they stacked it and rolled it back out. It's crazy. And the satellite in the payload bay was put into the payload bay while it was on the pad. So a 62-day turnaround, which is a new record. All right, I think that's all pre-launch stuff. So let's get STS-8 off the ground. All right, launch of STS-8 Challenger in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Liftoff of STS-8 Challenger, carrying INSAT 1B. Go for roll. Roll completed. Almost. So the crew, as I said in the VAB, is Richard Truly, Daniel C. Brandenstein. I'm gonna mess that up every time. Is the pilot, and our mission specialists are Gian S. Bluford, Dale A. Gardner, and William E. Thornton. This thing's gonna be way off. Richard Truly, we saw his name before because he was pilot of STS-2, so he gets to commander his first mission on this one. And same thing I said for STS-2. Wow, this thing is fighting me a lot. Sorry. He did lots of work with the astronaut support crew during manned Skylab missions in the Apollo-Soyuz test project. And he was a test pilot for the two of the ALTs. And this would be his last time into space. Brandenstein, he was a heavy electronics guy in the Navy, did a lot of testing with electronics and did a lot of research. And he was part of Group 8, which Group 8 will come up a lot. It produced a lot of shuttle astronauts. Just making sure I wasn't messing up SRB SEP, which I kind of am, but we're alright. And Brandenstein also served as a Cent Capcom for STS-1 and 2. And Brandenstein we'll see in future missions. So his name will come up again, as many of these do. I'm going to skip Bluford here for a second. We'll come back to him. Dale A. Gardner, which I put here in bold letters under his name on my notes, as having a unit of a mustache. Which, you guys should go look up Dale Gardner on Wikipedia and check out his mustache. It is... I'm admiring that mustache for sure. Also, part of Group 8, he was a Navy pilot, flew an F-14 Tomcat, which I needed to put that in my notes because it's an F-14. He did a lot of test evaluation of aircraft, so pretty much standard astronaut certification, test pilot stuff. Did a lot of work with flight software used on the shuttle computers. So being an electronics guy, obviously, he's going to want to mess with all the computers. He was support crew for STS-4, and... Oh, so another interesting thing, and I know EJ talked about the Vandenberg Space Shuttle launch site. Gardner was actually selected as the first crew to launch from that site, until it was obviously eventually canceled. But he was chosen to be on the crew to be on the shuttle first launch from Vandenberg, or Vandenfog, as you guys like to put it. And then second to last, we got William E. Thornton. He's part of Group 6, so he's part of the group before 8. Group 6 also had Musgrave and Lenore, who we saw in previous missions. So Thornton is a cool guy. He's super smart. He developed a lot of mass measuring instruments that actually they still use today up on the space station. He has like 60 patents on various measuring tools and just trying to measure the mass of something in 0G. And it's probably not easy. And this guy developed a lot of tools and instruments for that. He's part of the SMEET, or the Skylab medical test, where they basically lived in the Skylab on the ground for a while to figure out if they could live in Skylab. And I saved Bluford for last for a particular reason, because he is the first African American into space. second person of African descent, but the first African American into space. So it was a kind of a big deal. He was also part of Group 8, and he had various assignments throughout NASA before going up in the shuttle that included RMS, so the EMU RMS thing, space labs, verifying flight software. So he was all over the place until he got to go up into space and go for ETSEP. ETSEP confirmed. Okay. And I'll talk about the support crew here in a second. Which, just like previous missions, we will see a lot of support crew in the near future. Cool. So the support crew, let me scroll down to them. John E. Blaha, Mary Cleve, William Fisher, Jeffrey Hoffman, and Brian O'Connor. Again, all future Space Shuttle astronauts. I always make it a point to mention their names. Go for OMS ignition. OMS ignition confirmed. And we're in orbit. Good orbital insertion confirmed. Ready? Now the fun part. So, now that we're in orbit, you'll see a bunch of different things here in the payload bay. Some of them familiar, some of them not. Actually, there's probably one thing that's not familiar. So in the back, there's a satellite. It's INSAT-1B. It was more of a square satellite rather than the circular ones. But it deployed in kind of the same fashion. It did spin. I'm not going to spin this one because I don't think it's going to be that stable of a spin. But we'll get the good enough approximation on it. That's INSAT-1B. Up at the front here, you'll recognize the DFI. This is the last mission to fly with the DFI. And then we have our TDRS antenna, the K-band antenna. And last but not least is this piece of hardware right here. This is the payload test article, or PLT for short. They wanted to do a bunch of more tests with the Canadarm, and it was supposed to mimic a satellite, I believe. But there was something wrong either with a payload that was supposed to go up or something, and they just put in a test article because they still wanted to do something with the Canadarm on this mission. So day one was all mid-deck type experiments. One being the continuous flow electrophoresis system, which I've seen on many other missions. Or the CFES. I think it's gone up like twice before STS-8. So it was a lot of mid-deck experiments day one. Day two, they deployed INSAT-1B. So we'll go ahead and get that going now. So since this does have a PAMD kick motor, just like the last satellites, we need to point the nose in the correct spot first. So if we're coming down here to our PE, if that's where we want to deploy in 2 minutes, I need to make sure when the satellite gets to the other side, it's pointing prograde. So the satellite needs to point this way upon deployment. Because when they would deploy it, it was spin stabilized, which again I'm not doing. So it would maintain its heading, and then once they ignited the PAMD kick motor, it would raise its orbit. So I've got my nose pointed radial out, and I've got the satellite pointing retro. So everything goes well. We are still 2 minutes out from periapsis. Okay, we are countdown 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Initiating satellite deployment. Sunshade opening is confirmed. Release clamps are released, and satellite is deployed. Houston, we have a shroud going out with it. Roger, STS-8. Continuing mission is normal. Got a good deployment. Alright. And the satellite, once it ignited its motor and everything, there was no problems with this one. Because I know they had lots of previous issues with the PAMDs on the previous ones. Alright. Extend the antenna. I just don't want to lose comms. This one also had an extendable antenna, which I'm kind of mimicking here. That's so lonely. Okay. We're halfway to apoapsis. And this also went up to geosync. Deploying antenna. That's all far as I made it go out. Whoops. So yeah, day 2, they deployed the satellite. On that same day, after the satellite was deployed, there was a fire alarm that indicated there was a fire in the avionics department, which that's not a place you want to fire. There's a lot of electronics and stuff like that in that area, and you don't want to fire in the avionics department. But they, after debugging the problem and all that, they determined it was a false alarm. They think it was like due to a wire short or something like that. Other than that, there were 8 getaway special canisters, which you've heard me mention these in the past. They're just little canisters they put in the payload bay that contain experiments that outside organizations can send up. They obviously pay for the canister and the payload. They put them in the payload bay and they send them up. So there were 8 of those canisters, plus the satellite, plus the DFI, and then this PFT, which we're gonna get to in here in a second. I did mention the K-band teeters satellite or antenna because they're trying to test that satellite that was deployed on STS-6, which has been having problems. Spoiler alert: it had more problems on this flight as well. They lost comms numerous times, not only with the satellite, but to White Sands ground station through the satellite. So they still need to work on the satellite, but we'll talk more about that in STS-9. The PFT, since what was supposed to be here wasn't ready, they put this in here. The point of this test article was to test payloads, or heavier payloads, on the end of the Canadarm. So they would put it in certain positions and then move the orbiter to see like what kind of strain that the Canadarm could take and not take. Luckily, they didn't snap it off or anything, but so they put it way out and they tried to roll the shuttle. They like put it like out here and like tried to yaw it, weird stuff like that. Just to see how strong the Canadians built that arm after all. The tricky part is too, I didn't give myself much space to put this back in. It was very tightly stuck in here on the real shuttle. And they actually didn't grab it at the top here. There was a thing down in there. When the arm went behind, you couldn't see it in the attachment, so they'd use the camera once it dropped below this front panel here, or to actually attach it to the PFT. We have grappled onto the PFT. Roger. Next fun part is trying to get this thing out of there. I want this. So, think serious. So this needs to go up to 0. Got it. Alright, undocking the PFT. Please do not crack and strike. Cross your fingers. Alright, no crack and strikes. Perfect. Going up. Lifting PFT out of the payload bay. This is not how they did it on STS-8, I promise. They did not, crash into the DFI with the PFT when they grabbed it. There we go. Get that thing out of there. Why this is so... Blueford, what are you doing back there? Nothing. We're just playing with the PFT, we're good. Why is it so close to the tail? No reason. Alright, so now that we got this actually out of the payload bay, I can talk about it a little bit more. So on the... Well, actually, on the DFI, there were some other experiments, but I'll mention that in a second. The PFD, again, just a mass simulator to put on the end of the Canadarm. So when they put it out there, they rolled the spacecraft back and forth to see what kind of stresses that it would be put under. That was probably a little bit aggressive than what they actually did. But it's something similar. It's like if something shifts in flight with the Canadarms attached to it, can it handle it? And lo and behold, the Canadarm was just fine. It handled everything just fine. Mission was fully successful. Everything was normal. So the fun part is going to be getting this back into the payload bay. Because they did bring the PFT back down with them. So other than that, the PFT was kind of unexciting. The DFI did have some extra, like, say normal. I did say normal. SpaceX joke. For the DFI, they filmed some performance on the heat. There's like heating pipes, I guess, on the top of the DFI. They were doing some thermal camera stuff with that, see how they performed. And they actually went. They changed their orbit a couple times. They went into a more eccentric because they were roughly 350 by 350. They dropped from 350 to 140-ish to see how the heating pipes in the DFI expanded and contracted. So a little bit extra tests were put on the DFI for this test. There was also some additional tests done. They wanted to see, there were weird glow they were experiencing around the orbital occasionally. So they sent up a test of these thin, they call them thin atomic oxygen strips that I guess did some tests to see what was causing random glow spots around the orbiter. I should have looked into that a little bit more. All the missions STS-8 kind of did. It was kind of a multifaceted mission. Let's see if we can get this back in the payload bay and attach to this docking port. I think I can. It shouldn't be too hard with the magnetism, but we'll see. Alright, and we're back in the payload bay. PFT is stowed. Undocking Canadarm. Canadarm undocked. Alrighty, let me see if there's any other orbital notes I have. I don't think I do. I talked about the heat pipe on the DFI. For the rest of the notes I have are for landing. So let's bring her home. And shut up. Payload bay. I'm gonna lock the sunshade motors on the satellite deployment mechanism. If I can. Oh, I just had it. Whoops. So lock those. That should be locked, so we're good there. Okay. Orbiter is stowed. Alright, let's check our orbit, see where we can land. So I'll just mention it now. I said at the start of this mission, they took off at 1:30 in the morning, so it's the first night launch since Apollo 17. Also, when they landed, it was the first night landing of the shuttle. And the weird thing about the shuttle is you can't put landing lights on it, because landing lights on the wing fronts or underneath are just areas for re-entry heating to cause problems. So there were no landing lights. So at Edwards, they had to replace all the runway lights with xenon bulbs, so they were extra bright, or xenon arc lamps, so they were extra bright, and they turned as many lights as they could on. So when they were guiding the shuttle in, they had something to go off of, because no landing lights on the shuttle at all. It was completely dark. Coming from the craft. Although KOC on the landing gear still has lights, so there's not really a good way of... I guess you got to turn the lights off. So maybe I will do that on landing. I'll turn the lights off. We won't come in on the dark side, though. Let's actually... I'm too past it. That'd be a morning landing anyways. So I'm gonna probably land during the day. Although I could go back to the tracking station and over it a little bit more. Maybe I'll do that. Let's do that. Go to the tracking station. We'll fast forward so I can get a night landing. F5. Okay. Initiating fuel dump. Shutting off the OMSs. OMS shutdown complete. Fuel dump. Okay. Fuel dump is off. Reactivating OMS. For deorbit burn. Lock to maneuver, which we're already there. Perfect. T-minus 2.5 minutes to deorbit burn. Alrighty, let's do it. Alright, I'm gonna go a little bit lower. Okay. Right there. Yeah, so I'm a little bit lower. We'll hopefully get some lift and it'll carry us. 176, I'm okay with this. So... plus, roll 0, pitch. 20 degrees, yaw 0, execute. Get the elevons ready. Alright. You can't... There we go. Alright. Now this is going to recorrect itself. Alright. Here we go. F5 in right now, just in case. We're going for re-entry. I don't think I have to do much with this right now. I just gotta let the shuttle do its thing. Okay, so right when we exit re-entry, hopefully my apoapsis starts going up. That's what I'm banking on right now. The wings will start catching some aerodynamics and we'll... Okay, I have visual on the desert airfield. Yep, we're going back up. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. I think we're good. I'm gonna see if I could do this. I have faith. I think we'll get there. It's gonna take a little bit of gliding, but I think we'll get there. STS-8 Challenger. We're looking good. Continue our current flight path. Turn north after 83 seconds. I can't do ATC. Sorry, guys. Turn this back on. What's my speed? 100? Yikes. Okay. I take that back. I thought we were faster than 100 meters per second. We're a kilometer off the deck. You joysticking it? I am. Yep. This is joystick. I still have a bunch of fuel. Once I get past this, I can carry it across this mountain here. This little decline. Yep, we don't have enough. Not enough juice. Coming in too heavy. Gear down. We're landing short. Flare, flare, flare. Touchdown. Nope. 9. Parachute deploy. Man, that's so close. Alright, I'm just gonna let it break on its own. It's the extra runway. It's the dry lake bed here. That's what I landed on. I counted too much for how heavy it was. What's the vessel weight right now? Does this have that? 56 tons? Not 56 tons, 56,000 kilograms. We were that close. That close. Okay. I'm just gonna turn on the brakes now. Let it kind of slow down on its own. Okay, this is gonna take a while. Never mind. Party shuttle. Nope, no party shuttle. Alright. And we're on the ground. I don't think there's anything else I need to say about STS-8 now that we're on the ground, other than it landed at runway 22 on Edwards. And I talked about the night landing, which we kind of did. Because there's no landing lights on the actual orbiter itself, because that's weak points for the re-entry heating. But yeah, it was a pretty straightforward landing. No problems. It seems like Brandon Stein, make sure I say that correctly, piloted it in just correct. So that's STS-8. Mission success.